But the one that resonated the most with me was the conscious parenting approach, where I need to level up to be with my child, and it is a relationship of equality, Mahua. Because when I feel you have equality in relationship, there's equal respect, there's equal love, there's equal nurturing, there's equal number of yeses and equal number of no's. So basically you're treating two people as equals, or just relationship में equality होती है और respect automatically follows. One is stop telling your child that, you know, you're not good enough, right? Saying this generation hasn't got it right, or just blaming this generation, right? Because I think that is such a wrong thing to say. Every generation before us thought we weren't getting it right. So I think the biggest mistake we're making as parents, Mahua, according to me, is we're not listening to our children. Children are very intuitive, they're very sensitive, very empathetic. Just listen to them.
Hi, welcome to the Mohua Show. My name is Mohua Chinappa and I am an author, entrepreneur, and ex-housewife. This podcast is about everything from business to technology to arts to lifestyle, but done and spoken ईमानदारी से. Hi, in today's episode, we have with us Mansi Zaveri, the founder and CEO of Kidsstoppress.com, India's leading discovery platform for parenting and childcare. With a digital reach of over 20 million per month, she has transformed the landscape of parental guidance. A certified conscious parenting coach, Mansi's insights and expertise have made her a trusted voice among parents. So now we're going to talk about her best-selling book, The Parents I Met, which continues to top charts, featured in Exchange for Media's Content 40 Under 40 list. Mansi is also known for her engaging interviews with celebrities and experts, helping parents navigate the complexities of raising children in today's world, which I think is such an important topic because I grew up at a time, Mansi, when there was no idea of conscious parenting. I think we were just grateful that our parents paid for our school fees and sent us to colleges and bought us books and taught us raat ke time pe nahi nikalna hai. So kudos for you to have this side of being an author plus also being an entrepreneur, to understand that there is this gap and doing such a fantastic job with it, Mansi.
Thank
So Thank you. Thank you so much for taking out the time today. So, you've built Kidsstoppress.com into an immensely successful platform. What inspired you to start Kidstop Press?
I think any venture or anything that you do, when it stems from a need, from a pain point, I think it's always something very, very beautiful. And I think for me, it was just that it was about about creating something that would help parents make informed choices. Because I felt that gap as a full-time working parent, that I do not know the whereabouts, or where do you get this, or where do you find that, or someone telling me about back in the day about what are the timings of the zoo, as simple as that, or where could I get a Rakhi outfit, or where could I get a Diwali gift, or what are the games to play, or even about inclusion, or today we talk about neurodivergence and learning disabilities and all of that so normally. That wasn't the case back in the days. So very simply put, Mahua, it came out of my personal need of not finding anything at all for Indian Asian parents. Everything that I found on the internet was so Western in its approach, and I know as Indians we're very rooted in how we want to raise our children, and we do not want to move away from our roots. And I truly believe that there is a lot of merit in sticking to what our roots are saying, of course backed by science, because then that adds more believability. But I think it came from a very, very personal need of not finding any of that at my convenience in a format which was not to overwhelm me, but just to simplify it.
So yeah, Mansi, I mean, you know what, when I look back at my time as a first-time mother, and I just thought that, the minute I would deliver my child, my stomach would go back to normal and many such crazy stuff. And I just didn't believe what I saw. And then, I was into a new city. I came in when I was 7.5 months pregnant with a new gynecologist, and I didn't know where to buy my things. So what you're doing, I think, is so fantastic, So Tell me about the highs and lows that you've experienced along the way, because obviously when you started, it would have been not easy, because many people thought that it's something that's passed on through your grandmothers, mothers, and you just need to call your bua, your masi, or your friend who's had a child before you, and you'll get that going. And there are many things that I look back at my own motherhood journey, and I think that there were, because each of us raise our child in our own way. And so tell me, what were the lows, and what was those times when you said that you want to stop it and you want to continue what you're doing?
It's so lovely that somebody's actually asked me about the lows first, because I think in the journey of sharing and in the journey of entrepreneurship, we glorify so much of the successes, but we never talk about any of the hardships or the struggles that we really, or the sacrifices that we make. And I think that is such an important part of everything. And I'm so glad that I'm doing this, because we always, even for our children, we kind of only glorify success. We never appreciate or applaud the failures, right, or the struggles. So I'm really glad that you asked me that question. Trust me, Mahua, the journey from zero to where we are today, 11 years later, or zero to being a 500K channel subscribers on YouTube, or almost close to 300,000 on Instagram, or close to about 500,000 on our website. It's not been an easy journey, because it's not that everything works. It's not that every time you find a connect, or everybody resonates with what you are, that you are going to share. So I think a few of the struggles or the times have been to just explain to parents that this could happen to you. I think parents are a species where we are a lot in denial that no, this is not my child, because in many ways you've created this ideal child avatar, and if anything does not match that ideal avatar, then you are in denial. You're like, no, this is not going to happen, and then the struggles begin, right? And that is, for us, it's a lot of even educating the parents that it's not only about you, it is about your child, and you need to empower yourself before your child. So that is number one, because also as humans, we believe that no, there are no flaws in me, and I don't need any changing or empowering or evolving. It's always somebody else who needs to be fixed. So that is number one. Second is that when we started Mahua almost 11 years ago, and literally people call me like, how did you even think that you're going to do this, or did you ever think that you're going to be the first parenting influencer in India, and you're going to continue to be that 11 years later? And I'll say no, because honestly, when I started 11 years ago, there were no bridges, there were no highways. I was literally taking it one day at a time and explaining to people that why parenting is important, why communicating to the parent is important, why communicating to the parent on digital is important, and why social media is not all bad, and to share about what you're doing with your child um, is okay, and it's not going to make one child smarter than the other, but together it's going to help us as a community of parents, and together it's going to help our children. So I think couple of struggles. One is explaining why parenting is important, why parents need to empower themselves, and of course explaining the whole digital landscape, cultivating that whole digital landscape, and going about the different whereabouts. I think all of it was challenging. Times that I wanted to give up, I think there were fewer times, or I wouldn't lie that there were no times, but there were fewer times, because I was so aligned with my goal, Mahua, and my entire ecosystem, whether it was my kids, whether it was my parents, whether it was my husband, everybody, and my team, most importantly, I think everybody was aligned with the vision that we are causing an impact. We are changing one family at a time, right? So I think when you have that in as your end goal, as your vision, I don't think that, yes, you have days when you're low, where you feel like, how am I going to wake up tomorrow? But somehow the next morning when I wake up, and I just am grateful that I have the power to change one parent at a time, one child's life at a time. I just spring in with some sort of energy. And it's 11 years later. And trust me, there hasn't been a day where I feel like I don't. Just yesterday, my daughter has been a little unwell. Like we've had a lot of weather changes in Bombay. And, I had a very, very busy day yesterday. And I'm like, Akshata, I don't think I've taken a single day off when my kids have been unwell. My kids have just learned to entertain themselves even on sick days, or just know that what my mom's doing is important to her, and she will, I can adjust my day and place of work, but I may not be able to give them that 100% nurturing, but I do come in bits and pieces and hug them and kiss them and watch them and manage them. But um, I don't remember taking a single day off. And there are times when I wonder that, um, you know, um, my child has just learned to adapt versus demand. And on those days, I feel a little bit down. But trust me, work is my happy place. It never makes me feel down and out ever, or it's never a struggle for me.
I resonate fully with you, Mansi. I rebooted my career, after a very long break, after my son left to study in London. And there hasn't been a single day when I too had to explain the entire digital landscape to people. And they didn't understand why I wanted to do podcasts and why is it this that I can't kind of just calm down, because nobody was talking about podcasts at that time. And it was very, very, but I used to feel bad. There were times when I also thought that kya zarurat hai, I can just go around, travel, and meet my child
Yeah,
and come back and just just be. But exactly like you said, this is my happy space, and there hasn't been a single time that I've been unhappy when I've been recording, writing, writing books, writing columns, and doing what I'm doing right now with you. So each word has resonated to me in my heart, Mansi. So let's just talk a little bit about your book now, right? The
yes.
book, The Parents I've Met, has received a lot of love from readers. And so, can you tell us about the inspiration behind the book and what readers can expect from it?
Yeah. The first, I'm just, and I'm gonna say this, I've said this time and again, I am so grateful to all the parents, all the children, all the educators, all school librarians who've kind of picked this up, a lot of the youth who have picked it up, and like a heartfelt, thank you for that, because so much love for your first book is definitely overwhelming. So many messages on how it has changed people's lives, how it has transformed the way they parent, how it has been moments when they want to keep coming back to it when they've struggled with it. um, is overwhelming. How sometimes they've just felt really trashy as a parent. They feel like they've not done a good job, and they just pick up some page or some chapter, and it just adds in a new level of zing and makes them feel like, wow, I'm not the only one. And it just makes them feel like a better parent, right? Or it helps them navigate a situation they've been struggling with. So really, really grateful for that. The idea of the book came about, Mahua, very honestly, as a parent and as an avid reader. I would struggle to go into bookstores and find a parenting book that spoke to the parent. I just felt all the books were just on how to raise a child. Nobody taught us on how to raise me, how to raise my husband, how do we become,
Agreed.
because there's no university that you're going through. There is just everyday life that we are going through. We've been dealing with our own inhibitions, our own trauma, our own fears, our own anxiety. And somewhere we end up projecting that on our children. So for me, it just, I was, my kids are today 15 and 12. I've looked for that book for 15 years, right? And it just didn't come about. Even today, when I browse bookstores, there is, in the best of bookstores, you won't find a parenting section. If you do find a parenting section, it'll be filled with books on how to raise a child, very few on how to raise a parent. And the third was, where are the Indian parents? Why are Indian authors not writing about parenting? When we have a very unique, distinct style, our cultural, social, emotional, cultural landscape is so different from the way other communities and other cultures raise their children. Why are we not why is somebody not helping me navigate a joint family system to raise my child? That's so inherent to us. So that was a struggle. Why? Where are the real parents? I don't want, as a parent, I don't want to hear from a from a self-help coach on how to raise my child. I want to learn it from a fellow parent, because I know that person is navigating the problem just like me, day in, day out, right? And he's going through the struggle. He's going through the struggle in real time. If parents today are talking to me about screen time, I know what the struggle is. And that's why maybe Mahua, the connect with Mansi, the parent, is so high versus any other person guiding you through that. Because Mansi, the parent, who's also a conscious parenting coach, can guide me because she's facing the struggle just as much as her, just as much as me. So, and the most important part, I wanted to share real life stories. I wanted to share stories of parents who are navigating or have navigated through different geographies in India, through different family situations, some in abundance, some in scarcity, some with very liberal and open minded parents, some with very conservative, some who are operating from a very like Captain Shivani Kalra, very very progressive parents. But society तो वही है जिसने उनसे कहा that you're raising, you're spending so much for your daughter to be a pilot, but एक दिन तो वो शादी करके चली जाएगी. Why are you wasting so much money? But you're still so progressive parents, but the society kind of pulls you down, right? Or if I take anybody like Captain Anuj Nair, nobody in the family background was in the armed forces, but son decided to be in the armed forces, and he chose his path, and the parents had to play the background orchestra. They had to chime in. So there, I wanted these real life parents from all different parts of the country, bringing in the cultural diversity, because we are not one. We're not one parent, we're not one child. We are many parents, many children. And I'm just hoping that somebody's story out of these 22 stories resonates with the parents who are reading it.
So, you've worked with many parents and experts, so what style of parenting? I know it probably is, it's a very biased sort of a question, but what do you think is the most effective? What kind of parenting?
So, again, I think I follow the conscious parenting approach. I've, over the period of so many years, come across so many different styles of parenting, so many different ways of communicating and raising children. But the one that resonated the most with me was the conscious parenting approach, where I need to level up to be with my child, and it is a relationship of equality, Mahua. Because when I feel you have equality in relationship, there's equal respect, there's equal love, there's equal nurturing, there's equal number of yeses and equal number of no's. So basically you're treating two people as equals. Or just relationship में equality होती है और respect automatically follows. Just relationship
I
में
agree.
hierarchy होती है, it's always you're looking down on someone. So I truly believe that every relationship which has equality, and maybe that's also something I resonate in every relationship that I follow. Like even with my team, it's not my way or the highway. It's what's your opinion? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I may have a stronger perspective and a stronger say, but it's always collaboration. And if we are moving towards a world of collaboration and cooperation, then why not with parenting? To me, I would say that the style that works is the best is the one that works for you, right? Because you know your family well, you know your circumstances well, you know your situations very well. And sometimes I think we don't need to overthink it too much. I think the problem with our generation is also that we're overthinking a lot of these things, right? So I feel whatever style works for you and for your family and for your situation is the best for you. But of course, evaluate why. Like if you are a hyper parent, why are you a hyper parent? If you're a helicopter mom, why are you a helicopter mom? Just go back to the reflection, and that reflection will all lead you back to conscious parenting, because you will be a more conscious human being, and therefore you will parent more consciously.
There's so much of evolution, I think, one needs to go through, look deep down inside your own self, to be a conscious parent. And I truly agree with you that it should be a relationship of equality. However, many times I think many of us forget that, because we tend to look at children as people who don't know. And you talk from a space of authority, and that needs to change for sure. You've interviewed many parents, of very big celebrities, right? So could you just share a story or an insight that you were very, very, inspired with when you spoke to them during your conversation?
Um, you know, it's to me at different points in time, what different parents and what they said really resonated with me, right? And maybe I feel, like I said at the start of the interview, right? What is born out of a need is always very beautiful. For me, this book was born out of a need at a time when I was struggling to find a whole host of answers for myself as a person, for myself as a professional, for myself as a mother. So different things that different people said, whether it was, in the toddler years where, you need to really uh, just be there, right? Nurture with them a lot of love, because they are unable to communicate what they're feeling. Everything's very new for them. Or whether it is in the tween teen section where, what Dr. Madhu Chopra said, that they are going through so much, just be their punching bag, right? And that I hold to heart even today, because sometimes when my daughter is having a moment, or she's vulnerable, or she's anxious and she wants to lash out, and I know that she's lashing out because she's unable to deal with it, and maybe as an adult I can regulate it, or maybe help her regulate it better. So that bit really resonated with me. Whether it is Sushant Divjikar's parents, or when he came out at the age of 18 and he said, "Dad, I'm gay," um, and Sushant's parents just put their arms around him, and his father said, "I'm with you. I love you." Right? And I keep saying this: the minute you put and embrace your child's choices, you're creating a boundary and a very strong wall between the world and your child, and it's shielding your child at least till a certain age, till he is capable of dealing with the world and the world's opinion of him and his decisions. And to me that was very, very beautiful. Just that just that wall of embrace was very beautiful. To me, like I said earlier, what Captain Shivani Kalra's mom said, that the world told us that, kudi de naal itna paisa kyun kharch karna hai, but she broke into her retirement fund and kind of helped Captain Shiva, paid for Captain Shivani's fees for her last bit of the training. And to me, that is beautiful. That sometimes, um, you've got to not listen, and how to shut out what the world says about your child or your decisions, when you truly believe that my child is going to do these things. So to me, to many, many occasions, so many things that have resonated, but a lot of them also said about how they've kept the family and their kids very close. They've spent so much time with their children. So I think every conversation is different, but every conversation and every advice that every parent has given me, I think the bottom line is that they've spent a lot of time with their children. And when I say time, as in not in quantity, quality, being there when your child most needed you, and supporting them in their decisions. I think those two or three things just stand out.
Yeah, that's non-negotiable,
Absolutely.
to support them. Yeah, absolutely agree with you. So, let's talk about kids who have been successful in their careers. What do you think that their parents do that's different, from many other parents?
Um, I think everybody tells you that, there's, and when you will read the book, it is about hard work, consistency, effort, a lot of truth, being very authentic to who they are and who they wanted to be. But I think one thing that kind of stood out for me, and I'm not taking it away from any of the outliers that I've kind of shared in my book, is the effort and the sheer grit, Mahua, the sheer grit that the kids showed, right? Like a parent is, and I keep saying this, and I've said this in the book as well. The parent is Krishna, right? Like from the Mahabharata. The parent is the the uh, you know
The guide.
the guide, right? And he's going to ride your chariot, right? He's your chariot. But that fight, that battle has to be, if Arjun wasn't capable, if Arjun didn't want to fight, there was very little Krishna could actually do, right? So all of these parents, in many ways, have played the role of Krishna in their child's life, helping them pick up the bow and arrow at times when they're confused, at times when they didn't want to fight. Sometimes you have to take harsh decisions, but Krishna guides them. He's like, "But I don't want to have conflict with my elders." And that's the time Krishna says that you just have to look at it as an enemy, and you are fighting the larger cause, and not, don't look at it at who the enemy is. You have to achieve that end goal which you had set out. So I think in many ways, it is the grit of the children. If the kids did nothing and everything was done by the parents, I don't think they would have realized their dream. I don't think that they would have been the outliers that they are today. But that unconditional support that Krishna gave is what you need to continue to give as a parent.
Wonderful, Mansi. Wonderful. I mean, uh, I'm really overwhelmed, listening to you, and I think this podcast is really going to help so many parents who go through so much, family dynamics, relationship issues when there's a child, that comes and there are sleepless nights, and your body changes and all of that. So phenomenal. Now, what do you think are the biggest mistakes that a parent can make, in today's times, with their children?
One is, stop telling your child that, you know, you're not good enough, right? Saying this generation hasn't got it right, or just blaming this generation, right? Because I think that is such a wrong thing to say. Every generation before us thought we weren't getting it right. They did not ask for screens. We handed them the screens. They asked for your time. You chose to substitute it with expensive and valuable because you were guilty. They 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 asked for play. You crowded it with classes. They asked for your opinion. You gave them labels, right? They asked for freedom of choice. Um, you took it as a personal battle to say, because you're my child, you can't just do this. So you gave them baggage. So I think it's so easy for us to say, you are not getting it right, or your generation has got everything wrong, or you are not disciplined, or you are not, or you don't value things. Those are labels. Why are they not disciplined? What have they seen? What have they been raised with? And yes, if you're talking, and also to understand what a child is going through, right? Like a classic case, Mahu, I would say that parents don't listen to children. I think that's the biggest mistake we're making. And kudos, I mean, in Bombay, in a far suburb, recently we had, two kindergarten kids being sexually assaulted. And I am so proud of their parents, because the kids refused to go to school the next day. Because, and their parents heard them out. The parents asked them, what happened? Why do you not want to go to school? What happened? The kids would have been scared as hell, because you're talking of 3, 4, 5 year olds here, right? If the parents did not listen, think, this would have been a repeat, repeat. And look at the consequences we would have been dealing with then. So today, if your child is saying, I can't wake up early when he's a teenager, you're fighting not with your child, you're fighting with his biology, right? Because generally in teenagers, you see that the melatonin sets in later. And, unlike in adults where, we feel sleepy by 39, they will feel it much later. And for them, the cortisol is much, kicks in much later through the day. So therefore, they like sleeping in late, right? Are we fighting discipline for biology is the question. They are trying, वो बहुत कोशिश कर रहे हैं, but तुम उनके साथ तो like try and give them some empathy, right? So I think the biggest mistake we're making as parents, Mahua, according to me, is we're not listening to our children. Children are very intuitive, they're very sensitive, very empathetic. Just listen to them. If they're saying, sometimes we force feed our kids, and it's happened to me. I've not become this Zen like person on day one. I remember very distinctly when once, my daughter was not eating, and I was like, what is this? It's bindi. How can you not eat? And whatever, whatever, whatever. And I force fed her. That night, middle of her sleep, she puked it out because she knew she was not feeling. To me, Mahua, that wasn't a realization of just she's unwell and I should not force feed her. To me, that was a sign my child knows his or her body well. I need to just follow those signs. They
Respect their choices.
respect their choices.
Yeah.
This was a very simple thing, like she could puke it out. There will be so many things that we tell them which they will not be able to regurgitate, or they will not be able to throw out because they don't know how to. This was a body reflex, so it just happened.
Oh God, how I was force fed, Mansi. My goodness. I have a whole list of complaints to tell my parents, for the way they force fed me. Now I want to talk to you about anger. And, it comes really from a very personal space because I had a very angry mother and a very angry father. And that really affected me, in the years that followed. And, you're always apologetic, you're always scared. And it's taken me only to be so much more older to realize that that's not what I need to repeat with my child. And there are many, many people who think that, the old way is the set way where, गुस्सा आया तो एक थप्पड़ मार दो बच्चे को या डांट लगा दो पापा से बहुत डर है तो पापा के सामने ये नहीं बोलना तो ये दिस इज बिन अ वेरी वेरी इंडियन फैमिली सिस्टम
Yes.
पापा के सामने नहीं बताना पापा को बता देंगे so how do you think parents of today should really look into the management of anger because most of us I think we come from that era where our parents have like एक दो झापड़ तो मार ही दिया है जब गुस्सा आया उन लोगों को
Right.
and my father never raised his hand ever on me but my mother was very quick to temper.
Yeah.
So what would you like to tell them, Mansi? And this is so close to my heart.
So first of all, thank you for sharing that. It takes a lot to share it on a public platform. That I dealt with the anger of my parents, and it's stayed with you today, right? It has stayed. It keeps going back in some corner, but it is there, right? So thank you for sharing that. I always tell parents that we get angry because we are unable to deal with our own inefficiencies. And I also tell parents of or people of our age that our parents didn't know better. They were also living in a joint family system. They didn't know how to express their emotions. They didn't have a vent out. So maybe family was one place they could just vent it out, right? And they came from a place of or a lack of knowledge, right? So that's why for them, forgive them. They didn't know better. The minute you forgive, okay, you've let it go. And I think, Mahua, that is a very, very, very powerful thing because forgiveness,
It's the toughest, Mansi.
yeah, forgiveness is the key to all unhappiness, in my opinion. So when you believe that they came from a place of oblivion or lack of knowledge, it'll be easier to forgive, right? And easier to forgive. Now, very important part is to understand, why am I doing this? Why am I getting angry? Anger is a very powerful emotion. It's not wrong to get angry. Let's also face that. Do I get angry? Of course I get angry. But let's understand the different ways today. And it's very easy in today's times to get triggered. Trigger causes a reaction. Reaction can be an emotion you are uncomfortable, right? Reactions could be an anger. Reaction could be hitting, pushing, biting. These are all forms, but it's all part of reaction. So why do we let's understand, why are we getting angry? Can we address that? Like the Stoics say, control the controllables. जो आपके हाथ में है, उस पे फोकस करते हैं. जो आपके हाथ में नहीं है, उस पे फोकस नहीं. Like the Gita says again, right? कर्म करो, पुरुषार्थ, just focus on work. So I would say let's focus on what we can control. We can control our anger and how we deal with the situation. How can we control our anger? By figuring out keeping ourselves nourished, so that is sleep and food, and keeping ourselves mentally and emotionally fit. So I would urge all parents to please ensure, like they say in planes, please wear your oxygen mask. Don't drop yourself on a hunger scale because it can be a trigger. Don't sleep deprive yourself because it can be a trigger. It will lead to a reaction. We need to work towards leading to a response, because respond is a better word than react. React is impulse, respond is thought through, right? So let's work on that. So let's make sure that we take care of these three. Next is to understand, why am I getting angry? What is triggering, right? See, we're all dealing with generational trauma, right? So, example, it could be for some parents, it could be math, right? I wasn't good in math. I suffered all my life. You better be good at math. If you are not practicing extra math, I'm going to get angry with you. I'm going to snatch away your phone. I'm going to do this. Why? Because I always felt a loser in math class, right? And that's why when my child is struggling with math, I'm getting angry. It's coming with me dealing with the fact that I was not good with math. I've not dealt with it because nobody taught me how to. Nobody even identified that I have a problem. So let's understand what are the other triggers which are not in our control. The triggers which are in our control are sleep, food, and of course, like I said, keeping yourself fit mentally and emotionally. The other part are triggers that come across every day in life. Your boss could have irked you, too much traffic, like I said, my daughter's not going well in math, or somebody's told me something, right? And I'm unable to deal with that situation at that point in time, right? So hypothetically, somebody said, "Oh, but Mansi Zaveri's daughter, or Sachin Tendulkar's son, or somebody else." I'm not putting ourselves in the same light, but why am I unconsciously passing on that baggage and taking on the anger? I need to stop projecting that my child is me. My child is not me. Because where does disappointment come from? Disappointment comes from expectations, right? And expectations are yours. Benchmarks and goals are your expectations, and your child's benchmarks and goals, which they set for themselves, do not need to match, because their goals and benchmarks need to come from what they enjoy doing, what they love doing, who they want to be. They don't need to match like, "Oh, I am Amitabh Bachchan's son, so." No, it doesn't. So you will be disappointed if you have very, very high expectations of who your child needs to be from an anger perspective. Also, if you can just, every time you're getting angry, you don't know how to respond, I just tell parents, take a moment out. Don't ring that doorbell if you're angry, and don't enter home because your child is not ready to face your anger. Shut yourself in the bathroom or in your bedroom or wherever you find quiet time, and take that moment to inhale, exhale that conversation. It's that simple. It's really that simple. Let that moment pass, because we all are capable of dealing with situations, not all at once and not in that moment. अगर आप पास्ट में रिफ्लेक्ट करोगे, you will laugh at all the times you did silly things. They seem so silly in hindsight, no? Why? Because today you're better equipped to handle it. In that moment
Absolutely.
you were not, right? So it's literally that simple. I would say anger is a great emotion. Harness it. And I keep telling this to, I do a lot of workshops for children. I tell children, if you're getting angry, don't bottle it up. Write it out. Where are you going to harness it? I'm angry because I want to be this. Okay, I want to be this. Let's work towards being that. Harness that energy, right? Because that energy is very powerful. But don't bottle it up, because it has to come out at some point in time. It's like that bhindi, right? You have to vomit it out at some point in time because it was force fed. And to all parents, just because it happened to you, it does not need to happen to your child. Okay? You need to deal with your trauma first, because otherwise you're just going to pass it on generation after generation after generation.
I agree.
And
I
most
so
important,
agree with
communicate to your children what are your triggers. Like to me, I'll just be honest, a dirty desk is my trigger. Like it just makes me angry, right? At some times I may have the time, I may be able to clean it up. Some days I don't have the time. So I have now started, and most parents can adopt this. At least with my elder one and my husband, I see something dirty, I take a photo and I send it on WhatsApp. And I just write trigger, right? Because it's triggering me, but they need to be aware that it's triggering, right? So I think we fail to communicate what is making us angry. It's okay to share that, right? And trust me, when you share that, it's very beautiful because the other person knows where you're coming from. And to all the parents dealing with generational trauma, share it with your kids. Say that sometimes I work like this because my parents did this to me, and I'm on this journey just as much as you. You are a first child, and I'm a first time parent. I don't know how to navigate it. And you can say that to your second one as well, because every child is different. And don't feel sorry to
Absolutely.
apologize. I think the biggest mistake parents make is after getting angry, they don't go ahead and apologize. I think that's very, very wrong. Galti ki hai, maafi mang lo. It's okay. If you say sorry, you're not going to be less off.
Agree with you fully. Absolutely agree with you. Would there be any brands that you would recommend, Mansi, for parents to choose products from? Unless if it's a tricky question, you can let that go. But if you feel that there would be products on any, for parents to know that they can trust those brands for their kids.
See, I think for children and for the parents themselves, I always go for brands that speak of me, right? That share the same value system, ethos, and what I am looking for, right? So for me, if it is about clothing, or if it is about uh, if it is about brands that I use in my kitchen, it is always going to come from a very, very sustainable space, right? Because that's who I am. That's who I am as a person. That's who I am very inherently, right? Like to me, something that is environmentally conscious, right from the coasters in my house to, to the books, to the paintings, to the furniture, to using organic products in our kitchen, it is who I am. I would rather invest in this than bag shows, clothes, other materialistic things, because I don't need to flash brands for you to be my friend or for you to think more of me. If somebody is doing that, it's their personality, not me. So whatever works for you. If it's safety, security, which is extremely critical to me, for my family, from a digital front, we would use Apple products, because for me, a safer ecosystem, something that's working for me from a time, productivity, security, safety perspective, is far more important than anything else. So I would say that choose products and services which reflect on who you are as a person, and don't follow the herd.
Lastly, Mansi, what are the future projects or initiatives that parents can look forward from Kids Stop Press?
Interesting. For now, we're working a lot on children and mental health. We're hosting a whole host of workshops, whether it's in the conscious parenting space, whether it's for teens, for toddlers, for how to be a calm parent, how to raise readers. We're doing a whole bunch of workshops on all of these topics. And yes, the batch sizes are small, so people may find it extremely difficult to find a slot. But I think the idea is that, we create ripples of people, and they will pass on that, because it's very, very difficult to empower so many people at one go. But the idea is that if there is one thing I'd want parents to do, is, of course, just follow us on our social channels so they can be informed about how to deal with their children on a day to day, situation to situation basis, and be informed of all of the workshops that we are doing. Because to me, just empowering the parents is a huge, huge cause. Our podcasts are always on the top 30 in the kids and family space. So I would say the podcast space for us is growing immensely. And if you're somebody who walks, runs, exercises, or just looking for a mom or a parent play date, onto Apple, Spotify, and you'll find us. It's called the Kidsstoppress podcast. And of course, would love to work on my next book, most definitely. Just still can't get over the first one, and dealing with how to share it with more and more people, more and more cities, more and more countries. So yes, lots coming up in the pipeline.
Thank you so much, Mansi, for taking out the time and being on today's podcast.
Thank
We
you.
wish you all the best, and we are absolutely in awe. And you've inspired, I think, so many of my listeners who probably are going through so many challenges while raising their children. I, for one, have learned so many things because I am a mother. And, this has been a very, very riveting. And thank you so much for taking out the time today.
Thank you, Mahua, and I've heard your show, and it's incredible. And thank you for doing what you do, because it's just empowering so many people uh, to do better with themselves.
Thanks, Mansi.
To you, our dearest listeners, you can find us on your favorite streaming services: Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and of course on all other major streaming services. With loads of love, we are The Mohua Show, where we talk ईमानदारी से.